Madoka's the savior, huh? Screw that, Haruhi's him for life. Oh wow, it's anime theory time, and you know what that means, right? Time to be an edgy weirdo and ruin an anime for everyone. I mean, it's what I do, right? Gotta drag someone into this never-ending pit of nightmares with me. But yes, it's finally time to make my way back to the second series I ever covered on this channel, Madoka Magica. I've been itching to cover this show again, and thankfully I've got a theory that might just destroy your perception of Madoka entirely. Yeah, that's right, we're ruining an entire character again. Strap in tight and grab some goldfish because it's theory time. Now, in theory, Madoka's wish is actually a brilliant solution to the problems in the anime, as it not only solves the issue of the repeated timeline always ending in her death, but it also ends the suffering of every magical girl throughout history, kinda. For those of you who might be a bit fuzzy on the details, at the end of the anime, Madoka wishes for the creation of witches in the past, present, and future to cease. This way, all the magical girls won't become a witch, essentially saving them from the suffering that would cause. She also basically transcends humanity and becomes a god in a sense, but this is probably not important at all. That's actually kind of a brilliant solution though. It's not the solution I would have come up with, that's for sure. There's one huge problem though. It didn't turn out as planned. How would you feel if I told you that Madoka's wish may have actually not only doomed all of humanity, but the universe overall? That her dying might have actually saved more people. Well, sit tight and don't make any deals with suspicious cute animals, because we're ruining this for everybody. Let's get started. So, as explained by our old pal Cube, the reason why the magical girl cycle exists in the first place has a lot to do with entropy. In a basic sense, it's explained that the suffering and the grief that all the magical girls go through while going through their witch transformation provides energy that counteracts the spread of entropy. It is implied that if this process isn't carried out, eventually the entire universe will just be destroyed, and all the life forms within it will also be destroyed as well. So this is essentially the incubator's way of ensuring that the universe doesn't die out too early, and they've been doing it for centuries. So then, what happens when this whole cycle is broken by a wish and witches cease to exist? Well, as showcased at the end of the show, the universe is rewritten, and the way things work change completely. Magical girls still exist, and the incubators are still around clearly, but several other key aspects have changed. 1. Witches no longer exist. 2. Magical girls must now fight wraiths. 3. Madoka is no longer known as a person, but instead known as the law of the cycle. It may not seem like that big of a change overall, but I can assure you that there is a massive domino effect going on here. So hey, how about we talk about those wraith things that were mentioned at the end of the anime? Wraiths are essentially the second version of the world's replacement for witches. They drop small little cubes of grief that are used to a similar effect as the grief seeds. Anyways, there's a reason why these wraiths in specific are of note. While speaking to Homer about the previous world's way of combating entropy, he states that the old way would have been a lot more convenient, and that the current way isn't very efficient. And we know that it isn't efficient, as the entire plot of Rebellion was the incubators attempting to replicate the witch phenomenon. If the wraiths were a useful solution to the problem, i.e. if they actually worked to combat entropy, then there would be no reason to even go through all of this work. The incubators specifically went out of their way to have the witches return. The only way this would make sense is if there was a reason to put all this extra work into attempting the experiment, which is oddly out of character for the incubators otherwise. I mean, these guys just usually sit there and observe. There could literally be one right behind you and you wouldn't even know. Why the heck would they go through all this effort then? The reason why is that they did this because in truth, the wraiths aren't enough to combat entropy at all. Instead, the wraiths are acting as a way of putting off the collapse of the universe, not preventing it. Even more interesting is that we actually see the world begin to end in the movie and anime as well. I'm not joking. They've been hidden in plain sight the entire time. At the direct end of the anime, we see Homura in the middle of what looks to be an empty, barren wasteland battling wraiths. There's nothing around, no buildings, no people, no structures, nothing. There's nothing within miles. That's a bit odd considering that Homura isn't exactly known for just roaming barren wastelands for no reason. Why would she be in this place when we've seen that wraiths appear in the city she's already lived in? Also in Rebellion, once the magical girls have all exited the fictional world, we find them in another empty wasteland. Even more alarming is the few structures we do see. The area is nothing but dead plants and structures that almost seem buried. Even in the distance, the few plants look dead as well. I don't know if you've ever seen a desert, but there is a lot of plant life, and usually it's not things with roots this large. The desert is mostly a bunch of thorny bushes and cacti. Basically everything there just wants to kill you. Here, though, what little we see not only suggests that this isn't a desert by the plants present, but that said plants have had the life pretty much sucked out of them. Combine that with the clearly sunken metal structures, and we know that there was originally something else here. Perhaps even a town or a city. Now, what would cause all the plants to die and decay, previously active areas to be covered in sand, and a general lack of existing structures and plants? And why would the magical girls be located in said barren wasteland to begin with? I mean, if you had a home to go to, why would you actively choose to be in these kinds of places? Well, that's right. Entropy has already become more than just a problem. The entirety of the Earth is likely beginning to collapse, and considering how bad the Earth has gotten already in these places, it's likely not the only planet in this state as well. But you may be thinking, how could this have happened so quickly then? I mean, we see Homura in what looks like a fairly normal city just before this point. I mean, it's not like there's a huge chunk of time that could have passed, right? Of course that's what happened. I don't usually ask these questions unless I have a real answer for it. Actually, there's no reason to believe that it couldn't have been a solid amount of time. We've already seen that it's unlikely that the magical girls' bodies would actually begin to look old in any regards. Remember, their bodies aren't really their bodies at all. They're more of a puppet than anything. Magical girls can heal their bodies pretty rapidly, and heck, Kyoko even keeps Sayaka's body fresh even after she's been dead for a bit. And in the side material, we even find out that entire artificial bodies can even be made if need be, so what they look like doesn't necessarily matter at all. They could be 30 for all we know at this point. Also, there's a lot of evidence that suggests at least a solid amount of time has passed since the point where Homura was talking to Kyubey. At the end of Madoka Magica, Homura seems pretty fine with Madoka becoming the law of the cycle. By Rebellion, however, she's gone completely insane over not having Madoka around. It wouldn't make sense for this to have been an overnight thing, for her to suddenly have the ability to essentially betray Madoka to save Madoka. That implies that there was a significant amount of time that has passed. Also, planning out the whole Rebellion thing would have taken the incubators quite a bit of time. It's not like they would just hear Homura mentioning witches that could just be fake and instantly be able to come up with the whole plan. Considering the complexity of what they had to go through, it likely took years of planning and prep. I also want to note that it's not like this whole Wraith thing only came into effect around the 21st century. Remember, Madoka got rid of all the witches in the past, present, and future. That means that there would have already been a drastic difference in how effective the Wraiths were compared to the witches by the time the anime takes place. That's a ridiculous amount of years where they were doing an action that was less effective than the prior method. So, even by the end of Madoka Magica, the entropy was likely taking its toll anyways. So, taking this all into account, this means that Madoka's wish actually doomed everyone. Her wish that initially seemed like it would help only resulted in the eventual collapse and decay of not only the entire Earth, but the entire universe. Remember, there's a lot more planets than just Earth. Even more ironic than that, however, is that this means that the true hero of Madoka Magica was not Madoka herself. Instead, she's more the villain than anything. And that means that the true heroes were both the incubators and Homura. Man, isn't that ironic? The incubators gave an opportunity to change the entire universe so that everyone could be saved, and Homura took that opportunity, changing the world into one that is clearly still alive and functioning at the very least. See, if y'all just stuck to Haruhi, none of this would have ever happened. But hey, that's just a theory. An anime theory. There, I said it. You guys happy now? I've been asked to say it like a billion times. And hey, by the way, I've got a video coming out on Tuesday on my second channel since I did a whole update video explaining what's going to happen. So why don't you head over there and subscribe and get ready for that video. It's going to be on Ridley because Ridley is the greatest thing ever. Anyways, subscribe, like, do things. I have Patreon, whatever. I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.